وعليك السلام يا يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة ائتي إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ وقال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حارب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم، إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. الله. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مطية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل فقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى، يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مضية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يطفي إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم لقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله وعليك فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمير وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق النبي واصطفاني بالرسالة الذي يمنع ذكر خبرنا هذا في محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فضنا وفاغش وسعد. فقال علي إذا والله فضنا وفاغ شيعتنا وربي الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق النبي واصطفاني بالرسالة نبيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله عمه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فضنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد.
أحسنتم بكبركم. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على رسول المجدد والمصطفى الأمجد والمحمود الأحمد سيدنا ومولانا ومولى الكونين وجد الحسن والحسين آني أبي القاسم مصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله أعدائهم أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل وتكتموا الحق وأنتم تعلمون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So because you are in the front, you have to be very loud so that I can hear you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor to be in the Hussaini Mission Council, to be Ashra leading up to Arbaeen, inshallah ta'ala. And whenever I start an Ashra, I start by giving thanks to people who have made it possible for me to be able to doing this labor of love, as I call it. And it is something that it's not my job. My job is something else. But it's something which I've studied for. And many people I'm grateful to, but I name two people normally. One is very grateful to Sheikh Dr. Muhammad Ali Shamali, who is my teacher, who gave me the opportunity to study in the Hausa Ilmi of England. And I managed to study the first 5 years of Hausa with him. Now studying the higher with the new teachers now. And also I'm very thankful to Alima Dr. Lali Fatima, who happens to be my wife as well, but she's mainly my teacher. So yeah, those two made it possible for me to do whatever I do. So I'm always going to be remaining grateful to them. And that's how I normally start any Ashra that I do. So please bear with me. My name is Syed Imran Qaseem, for people who don't know. I live in the Slough Massif. Anybody familiar with the Slough Massif? No? Don't mean to Slough? Okay. No. It's a fantastic place. And I live there, and I'm at the Imam Jamaat of the Jummah Salat over there. I've been there for the past nearly 2 years now. So that is where I'm from. That's a little introduction about me. And I speak in English and Urdu both. Prefer to speak in English sometimes because you guys understand me. Right? So now we start speaking on the main topic now. The ayat that I recited from the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, number 42. In this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that not hide the truth and do not mix the truth with falsehood when you know. If you know the truth, do not hide it. And if you know the truth, do not mix it with falsehood and make it like palatable to somebody that because of certain reasons, certain pressures, certain advantages, whatever it might be. One has to be careful that the haqq, which is the truth, remains absolutely pure each time. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, and I'll be using this verse as my main headline to speak on the topic that I'm going to speak on. Now, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, this is going to be just an introductory lecture of the next few sessions that are going to come in, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah give me tawfiq, and you all as well to keep attending, and for me to be able to prepare properly to deliver it to you. I'm going to talk about history, a little bit of history. Sometimes it can be boring. Anybody like history in school? Wow, I've got a great audience, mashallah. Excellent. So, okay. So it's good that you like history because I'm going to be presenting something from Islamic history. I'm not going to be presenting you history as such. I'll be presenting you certain inquiries in history. Okay. Now, this is going to be, there's a quotation that goes around, which is the pen of the historian or the writer is free. I don't know if you've heard this. The pen of the writer, when I say writer, it could be any kind of writer. It could be a novelist, it could be a historian, it could be a poet, whoever. But here, the connotation I'm using is to the historian. So the pen of the historian is free, or the pen of the writer is free as far as history is concerned. This is a quotation used quite a bit. And it is the biggest lie ever told to humanity right through history. It is the biggest deceit that has been committed on humanity as far as this quotation goes, because it is very far from the truth. Any established, any rulership does not give any freedom to, the people who want to write history. They like to push their own agenda, whatever manner it might be, whether it's this age, whether it's 100 years before or 2000 years before, whenever it was, there's always the ones in power wrote the history or who had the history written in their favor. because nobody dare write it against them, even if they were wrong, because it would lead to killing of those people or the extermination and the removal of those people from society, because they were troublemakers for the establishment, for the rulers. So all this is utter rubbish that the writer is free to write whatever it wants. It's not. The people, these people, the rulers, who did not let the necks of Ali Muhammad go free, why would they and how would they let the writers on their establishment be free? Simple logic, you know. So it is never free. In fact, if you understand Urdu, when I take the liberty to give you a couplet in Urdu, is that okay? Yeah. जहां में काम कर गई सियासत की तारीख, जहां में काम कर गई सियासत की तारीख, जिधर दुनिया की दौलत गई वहां गई तारीख. So jahan means world, and what did I say? Jahan mein siyasat means politics, tarikh means history. So in the world, history did the job for politics. And wherever the money went, that's where history went. That's all. That's what means. So basically, it was, you know, people who had the money, they could make sure that the history was written in their favor, and that's all it is about this. Now, let's give you an example. If I give you an example, you will understand this. Now, you all have a background from the Indian subcontinent. You've never been to India as such. Maybe you've been to Pakistan. Some of you have been to India, maybe, were born in India. In India, when I was a child, I studied in India. I studied history in India, and we studied Indian history as well, right? And there, the British ruled for a long time, more than 250, 300 years, a long time. And I'm just trying to tell you how people write history. In 1857, in English, there happened what is called the Sepoy Mutiny. Have you heard this term? Hussain, no, you don't remember your history. Sepoy Mutiny happened in 1857. This was the term used by the British. Sepoy Mutiny. Sepoy for them means Sipahi. Sipahi means like a policeman. So the Sepoy Mutiny, they call it, because the policemen basically revolted. For whatever the reason, I'm not going to go into the details of the history. There was reasons why the policemen revolted, because they were in the British police, which was run by the British. And then, you know, whatever happened, they lost. The revolt was crushed down by the British because they had the power, they had the strategy, and they did everything. It happened in many cities in India, places like Meerut, Lucknow, Delhi, Calcutta, all those places, Patna, in many places in North India, right up leading up to Lahore, over there. So all that time, Indian subcontinent was one, right? Remember that time there was no partition. There was only India. There was no Pakistan at that time. So then this revolt was given the name in history as the Sepoy Mutiny, the revolt, or in Urdu they used to call Ghadar. Ghadar ho gaya. Or actually, Ghadar is actually an Urduized term for Ghadar, which is basically the revolt. Okay, so this term was used. The Sepoy Mutiny was used in 1947. Then India gained independence, and then Pakistan was formed, Bangladesh, or East Pakistan, West Pakistan was formed at that time. And then the term given to the Sepoy Mutiny was the first war of independence, because the Indian government decided that those people were fighting against people who were oppressors and usurpers. So now history changed the term. It became the 1857 Sepoy Mutiny. It became the first battle of independence, the first war of independence. So in 1857 was the first battle of independence, after which the local, East India Company, whatever it was, they realized that they can't handle this. The entire Indian subcontinent came under the Raj of Queen Victoria. That is when the actual British Raj happened. It came under the crown directly, being administered from England, and viceroys were sent, and all lords were sent, and all that stuff was happening. Before the lords and all, there were only, people in the garb of businessmen, the East India Company. So this is how history is written. When you are in power, you call a battle a mutiny. When you lose power, the new one that comes in power calls it a war of independence. This is a very recent example. It's not even 150 years old. So this is how history defines itself. Now, when any group succeeds, for example, they there's a revolt that happens, and a group of people rise up. What happens to them? They go around protesting, and the establishment beats them up. They get arrested. They go to jail. They get baton charged. Police is beating up with batons and all that, and sometimes they get bullets. Their families are tormented because they want their family members who are protesting not to go out on the streets and protest. So what they do is they will torture the wives and children and relatives and friends so that those guys learn a lesson. You come back. And they sometimes kill the family members as well. They would loot their property. They will usurp their things. All that stuff will happen. But when a cause becomes successful, what happens? Again, take the example of India, because it is very easily available. The reason what has happened is, if you have that successful cause that happens, then the people who were arrested and baton charged and called names and called criminals and all that, when the cause becomes successful, those same people are given important positions like prime minister, president, governors, and chief ministers and ambassadors and all that. They're all the people who fought with their lives. Once the cause becomes successful, they get the opportunity to be in important positions to drive their own agenda from there onwards. But if you look at Islamic history, it's quite strange. In the time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm not hearing your voices. You have a lot of energy, myself. You have to go to school tomorrow? Yeah. Queen's died. Everything's closed now. I don't have to go to work tomorrow then. Hopefully not. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So when in Islamic history, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam raised this slogan of La ilaha illallah, then there was a problem for him and his family, whoever supported him. They had problems that they could not be living in peace anymore. They were banished out of the town of Mecca. Remember that? They were banished out of the town of Mecca, and there was a social boycott against them. And they could not even eat and drink properly in those 3 years that they were boycotted. Everybody was in the fear of their lives. Anybody who followed them before or after or during was actually tortured. They were tied with chains and ropes, and they were made to lie down forcefully on the ground, on the hot sand of the desert. That's how you should torture them. And hot bricks or hot stones would be placed on their chests so that they learn a lesson and not go with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But those people's iman was strong because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about a lot of good things. Anyway, what happened was when Rasulullah's cause won and Islam became established and all, they moved to Medina and the state was established, all that happened. After Rasulullah passed on from this world, suddenly you see that the family of Rasulullah Ali Muhammad are being killed. And the people who perpetrated oppression before, after being given amnesty, are back in power. That is very strange. How does that happen? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So all the people who sacrificed were now in the background. The people like, Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was the supporter of Rasulullah from childhood. He fought in battles. He slept in the night of Hijrah in Rasulullah's bed. Do you know these stories? He slept in that bed where people were guarding the whole house, the swords drawn out. And under the shadow of the swords, Ali alayhi salam was sleeping. Because he had to let Rasulullah go on the Hijrah, the night journey. He fought the battles of Badr, Khandaq, Uhud, and Hunayn, and Khaybar. Yes, sir, you asked it. You saw it on YouTube. Very good. Yeah. So he fought all these battles, and he supported Rasulullah all through, but he was not given the situation of any importance after Rasulullah. His another cousin of Rasulullah was Imam Ali alayhi salam's older brother, Jafar. Jafar was the first, he led the first group of Muslims on the Hijrah. to Abyssinia. Abyssinia nowadays is Ethiopia. In those times, it was known as Abyssinia. So he took a group of people over there to seek refuge from these people. And he also fought in the Battle of Malta, in which he was killed after both his hands were cut off. So was given Bashar that he is in the heavens and he's got wings for his hands now. Jafar. So he had no, he was basically killed by the opposition. Then Rasulullah's uncle Hamza was another big supporter of Rasulullah, so of strength. He was killed in the Battle of Uhud. And he was martyred in the Battle of Uhud. And his body was mutilated by the opposition. Then we have the oldest uncle of Rasulullah who was Abi Talib. Now, he took care of Rasulullah since when he was a child, because Rasulullah was an orphan at a very young age. He took care of Rasulullah. He was a haven of peace and security for him. Till he was alive, nobody dared try to touch Rasulullah. There were attempts being made to kill Rasulullah all the time. So Abu Talib made sure that he was safe and secure. So he was later on named as a kafir by these people. And the people who were in opposition, like mainly give you one example, Abu Sufyan and the family members. They oppressed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They drove him out of the city of Makkah in such a harsh manner. They dealt with him when he was in Makkah. Rasulullah go under Allah's command out of Medina. When they were in Medina, Abu Sufyan organized armies to go and attack them in Badr and in Uhud. He did that. Despite that, losing both the battles or not getting the success as he expected in Uhud, what he did was he used to instigate other tribes around Medina to go and fight with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All these kind of things, little things were happening all the time by Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan's wife was Hinda. When Hamza was killed in the Battle of Uhud, she asked one of her henchmen, who was named Wahshi, to cut open Hamza's chest and take out the liver, and she chewed on the liver of Hamza, and she mutilated the body of Hamza, Salamullah, and was already dead by that time. That's how mean she was, So all these people, what happened in the 50 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the grandson of Abu Sufyan becomes the ruler of the Muslims, and it's called Khalifatul Muslimin, and the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hussain ibn Ali, is killed thirsty and hungry in the grounds of Karbala. What happened? We need to ask these questions. That's what my aim is. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So all these people were fighting, the Rasulullah side were fighting for the sake of La ilaha illallah, and the other side was fighting for idolaters, for people who were, pagans. That's what they were doing. And yet, the rulers became the ones who were in opposition to Rasulullah. For centuries, Muslims have not paid attention to what went on. Because if you look at just one example that I gave you of the Indian War of Independence, which obliquated the Sepoy Mutiny / the Indian War of Independence, even if you see there, you see that people who fought for the War of Independence became people in important positions later on. Why not Rasulullah's family, who sacrificed a lot, in many cases everything, be given certain important places? Why not? What was wrong with the Muslims? And even till now, 1444 years later, we have still not got the Muslims awakened in a manner to analyze what's going on, what has been going on, what's wrong with our people. And we talk about Muslims are not in a good shape, this, that, and the other. How will Muslims be in a good shape if you're not following the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Now, till Rasulullah is alive, till Rasulullah is alive, he goes to the house of the Fatima salamullah and he says, Assalamu alaikum ya Ahlul Bayt an-Nabuwwah, Madin Rasala, and then seeks permission to enter the house of Fatima salamullah, who is his daughter, right? We all know that. Fatima bint Muhammad salawatullah alayhi. Say salawatullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. So whenever he wants to enter the house of his daughter, he seeks permission. This is a man, Rasulullah, who went to Kaaba Hussain without any permission. When he goes to the house of his daughter, he seeks permission to enter. He his time. And then you have the grandchildren of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who are playing with Rasulullah on his chest, or sleeping on his chest, or playing on his lap, who are sucking his tongue, who are on his back, even when he's praying salah, namaz, they get onto his back. And they make him be like a horse or a camel, so that they sit on his back and he walks around with on all fours like a a horse. And they're playing on that. This is all happening. People are seeing that. And the status is obvious of these people, the grandchildren of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you have Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam, Rasulullah says, Ali, what he says? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ali minni wa ana minhum. So he says that all the time. And he says that Ali, the status of Ali to me is the same as the status of Harun to Musa alayhi salam, except that there was going to be no prophet after him. And he said, Man kud the Mawla wa hadha Ali al Mawla. Whoever this, I am the Mawla of this, Ali is the Mawla of that person. So all these things have been said during the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and yet people do not realize that after Rasulullah passes on, the daughter of Rasulullah is standing in the court of the ruler for hours. The witness of Ali and Hussain alayhim salam is being denied. They're not counted at all. And then the situation with his grandchildren is so bad that when Imam Hassan alayhi salam is their caliph, he is denied rulership by the forces, the powers of the other rulers who are trying to cause a revolt. And people take bayat on somebody else in the life of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And what happens to Imam Hussain alayhi salam is that he is diverted down to Karbala, and he is killed thirsty and hungry for 3 days. What is going on? We need to ask these questions. What happened after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, that these things started happening so easily, and nobody was saying anything? What was wrong with the people? I mean, we always say people are like sheep. They follow whatever they hear and they follow that. But so obviously wrong, and you still follow? I mean, I can understand subtle things that are happening in the modern world. Now it's not as subtle anymore, because we have a lot of open revolt from the truth, from many things which I'm not going to get into. But all the books are replete with these kind of anecdotes of what Ali alayhi salam was for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what Fatima salamullah was to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to get up when she was entering to his room. He used to get up, and she was only a young lady. She's not some elderly person. She was only a young lady. And Rasulullah would get up for her. And whenever he was going out on a trip, he would say bye to his daughter last. And then whenever he returned, he would go and visit his daughter first. That's how much importance he gave to Fatima salamullah. Then people used to comment on Rasulullah carrying his children on his shoulders. And people used to comment that, oh, look at what a nice ride that is. Like they're saying that, they're fortunate that they have Rasulullah to ride on. But Rasulullah would reply by saying that, forget about the ride, see who the riders are. Hassan and Hussain, that's how much importance he gave to his little grandchildren at that time, that look who the riders are. He's saying, these are very important people who are riding my back. I'm not important, but they are important. Which is why he said, Hassan minni, ana min Hussain, Hassan. And similarly for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But that means what? Hassan is from me and I'm from Hassan. Hussain is from me and I'm from Hussain. All these things he's saying. Okay, one can understand what it means when he says Hassan is from me or Hussain is from me, because he's the grandchild, right? So you're from the grandfather and the father, and then so you can understand. But when he says I am from him, what does that mean? What this has a deep implication. It means that these people make sure that I am remembered through eternity, through time. Because of these people, I will live on. Islam will live on. So these things are extremely important statements that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made about his own family members, right? And then The Muslim community did not pay attention to all these things. They got overwhelmed by the powers that be. People who shout the most. Sometimes, you think he might be the most powerful, most intelligent, or whatever. He knows everything. Not necessarily. So don't get, overwhelmed by people who shout too much. This is a message for all of us. Be on the side of the truth. Because I like to give small messages in the Majlis. It should be the case in the Majlis. So the message is that don't get overwhelmed by people who shout the most. They might be right, they might be wrong as well. But if you know the truth, you know that that is right. And always side with the truth. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So obviously, as I said, many books have been written. All these books are respectable books, right? These are very respectable books. But whatever book it is cannot be more respectable than the Quran. The Quran is the most respected book as far as we are concerned, and when any Muslim is concerned. Okay, so we will, whenever you see in the center as well, you see all the books are kept. The Quran is kept on top. You never keep another book on top of the Quran. You can keep another Quran on top of that. You have a book of dua, it still has to go under the Quran. Because the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the most respectable thing that we have. And it's always got to be respected. And what was strange when I went to do Umrah for the first time, like I mentioned, you should never get overwhelmed by somebody who's, you might think that they don't know. You're just guessing. I was guessing at least. When I went to Umrah, I did not have a hotel booked in Mecca. And I have to travel from Jeddah every day. So I decided that, I need to lie down a bit. So I would lie down. I had my own Quran. I would lie down, but your head needs a pillow because we're used to pillows. I saw people having the Quran under the head. I said, okay, these guys are doing it, let me do it as well. For 5 minutes, I put the Quran, may Allah forgive me for that, under my head. And all through that time, I felt, no, this is not right. I can't have my head on the Quran. And I couldn't sleep. I just thought I'll have a nap for about 20 minutes, and then do another tawaf. So, because I knew the truth, it kept eating at my heart that this was not right. Just because the others are doing all over the place, the Arab, they just treat it like it's any other book. Because they're so complacent about it, they do not know the importance of it. Because all they know is the zahir, or the apparent. They don't know what is behind the words, the depth behind the words. Knowing the apparent is important, very important. But knowing behind the apparent is also very important. It gives you a bigger picture, a deeper picture, and it gives you a lot more understanding. So I could not be like that for anymore. And I just took it off and put it in my bag and my chest. Okay. So it was much better than that. So the point here is that one cannot be overwhelmed by people who shout too much, because you see it's happening all the way. Everywhere it's happening, so it might be a good thing. No, not necessarily. Just because everybody's doing it doesn't make it right. If it is with the truth, it is right. If it is not with the truth, it is wrong. So what we need to find is, we find what is the truth. That's the main thing. Anyway, we're talking about the books and the Quran and all that. So in history, there's a narration, there's a story that goes that some little children, even younger than you all, very little, they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya Rasulullah, you always carry Hussain in your arms and on your shoulders and on your laps. So you carry us as well. Now, it's a strange one, this one, because little children like what, 2 years old or something like that, 3 years old, whatever, they normally don't ask other people to carry them. They either ask their own father or their grandparents or whatever. You might go and ask, shake hand, you can shake hands with them, give them a hug, that might be fine. But they will not themselves insist to be carried by a third party who's a non-family member. So maybe they were taught by people to go and ask us to do that. Who knows? But children don't know better. If I tell you, listen, go and do this, and they're so small, those children, even much younger than you are. So they say, okay, it's fine. It's not the fault of the children. So the children say, you carry us as well. Now, if Rasulullah says, no, go away, we are busy, and I can't carry you now, something like that, or whatever, he denies them basically, that will be a blot on somebody who is known as Khulqul Azim. You know what the meaning of Khulqul Azim is? The best in character. the best in character. There's nobody better than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as far as character is concerned. And he was known to never say no to anybody, to deny anybody. If something was asked of him to do or say, which he did not agree with, he would be quiet. And people will know that this is a denial. He was always ready to accept people's wishes as long as it was with the Sharia. So now this was not going to be easy for him to say no. And then if he took them on, then another book is going to be on top of the Quran. Because Rasulullah is the walking Quran. And these kids, okay, they're innocent, they're sweet kids, but you can't put something else on top of the Quran. It's a bit of a conundrum now. So somebody had gifted Rasulullah a bag of walnuts. You know, have you had walnuts? You like walnuts? You never had walnuts? You don't like them? You like them. Everybody likes them. Abbas doesn't like them. Abbas, you need to be initiated into it. So, yeah. So there was a bag of walnuts. So Rasulullah said, okay, do you want me to carry you or do you want some walnuts? And kids being kids, they say, yeah, I want some walnuts. So Rasulullah said, okay, put your shirt out like that and we put walnuts for all of the children. So no blot on the Khulq al-Azim and no book on the Quran either. See how he dealt with it. Okay. So this was one way in which, Rasulullah dealt with in a manner. So when this happens, and the Quran, which is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is behaving in such a manner with people who are regular people in Makkah, children in Makkah. There is something to learn from this. People are always interested. Why were they sent there? If we believe that the children are innocent, they don't do things of their own accord, these kind of things, like I mentioned, they don't insist on somebody else carrying them. They might insist with their father, with their mother, with their grandfather, their grandmother, but they don't insist on somebody else to carry them. Why was this being done by people if it was being done? And all this was going on, as strategies were being used to somewhere or the other to show Rasulullah is like one of us. He was one of us. Okay? What does that mean when I say one of us? He's a human being. He's just like us. And if he's just like us, he makes mistakes like us. But they could not understand the fact that Rasulullah is actually light. He is made of nur. And people are asking, what if he's made of nur, then why can't he show us in the nur form? That's because we normal human beings cannot handle the nur of Rasulullah. We cannot handle it. Because if we see the nur and we get scared, what is this? Then we understand, okay, we'll believe you, whatever you say. Allah doesn't want that kind of belief. He wants the belief of understanding. He wants us to understand and then believe. All these things are there. It is now actually a miracle. For 70 years, 70 to 80 years after Rasulullah passed away, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was cursed from the pulpit of a masjid. On the Jummah prayers would not start without the cursing of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And they call bad names to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Why? Because they have this enmity with Imam Ali alayhi salam and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because he was very powerful. Powerful in what sense? Powerful in the sense that he had the knowledge which was given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, opened by Rasulullah to him. He was brave, the bravest among them all. He was generous, he was hardworking, you name any good things, he was that. And they could not handle the fact that after Rasulullah gave the leadership to Imam Ali alayhi salam. They could not handle that. So that is why there was some conspiracy theory was hatched to talk bad about Imam Ali alayhi salam so that people don't know any good things about Ali alayhi salam. And for 70 to 80 years, if we different narrations on this one, for example, imagine the person who was born when the cursing started was 70-year-old man and the cursing was still going on. Almost 3 generations have grown up in that time. People did not know who the real Ali was because of these people who had this certain hatred for Bani Hashim and the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is a miracle that after all these efforts, we are still talking about Imam Ali alayhi salam and his fazail, or his good bits, his good characteristics, even now in this day. Not just in the Middle East, we're talking in England, we're talking in Australia, we're talking in India, we're talking in America. Everywhere we're talking about Imam Ali alayhi salam. It's not just a normal thing. When you have the entire establishment geared towards putting down someone, and yet Allah brings the name up somehow. This is not just a normal thing. It is something that Allah wants to happen, and that is why it is happening. And we call it a miracle because we don't know the cause and reason how it happens. That's what we call a miracle, right? When we don't know why something is happening. Why it's such a miracle? When we explain that, because you don't know the understanding of why that is happening, and it's miraculous to you. You think, oh, it's so great, this thing. I've never seen anything like that. It's a miracle that he survived, we say. Well, you know, sometimes you see people fall down the train line and the train is just like, intact, just like that. Mainly because he was shrewd enough to stand in the corner and the train passed by, whatever happened. And we all say it's a miraculous escape here. But Allah deemed it that he will not be hurt there, which is why he was saved, or she was saved. So a miracle, we call it because we think that it is something which we cannot have any understanding, any logic for how that can happen. So this is how the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam has survived miraculously. I use it miraculously, but there is a very strong reason, because Allah will never let one of his own die away in time. Allah will never let that happen. He will make sure that the name lives and the attributes of the Prophet. And we are very fortunate to be living with him as our leader, as our Imam, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Salawatullah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And taking the name of Ali alayhi salam reinvigorates Iman, you know, because he is somebody who is not normally revered by people. You know, if you say, these guys always do Ali, Ali, always do Ali, Ali. What's the point in going to the always talking about Ali, Ali, Ali? But I would question them. You call them yourselves a Sunni, for example, or even not Sunni. You call yourself a Wahhabi, Sufi, whatever you want to call. But they all follow Rasulullah, right? Every Muslim of any shape or form or any denomination says they follow Rasulullah, which is why they say we don't follow these Imams and all that, because we follow Rasulullah. Rasulullah said, beautify your gatherings by talking about Ali. Now, who is doing what Rasulullah said? The ones who talk about Ali, right? The ones who are not talking about Ali, they're saying that Rasulullah, you can keep saying what you want, we'll not talk about it. And they will say, these guys always talk about Ali. Okay, fine. This logic is taken away. Now, then they say, no, they talk about Ali and all is good, but they don't do any amal. They don't do any prayers. And we do prayers on time. On time, just now it happened. As soon as the adhan went, we pray. And any other ibadah that is meant to be done, whenever it is meant to be done, we all engage in that with full fervor. It's not that we don't do it. Whether it's Saum means fasting in the month of Ramadan, or zakat and khums. In fact, we give more charity than most other people. Yes, Beta?
Said that if you look at Imam Ali's face, it's like a
very good, very good. He did say that. So, but we can't look at his face in this generation, right? So we have to see, and Rasulullah also said this, that if you can't see his face, Zikr Ali is ibadah. Zikr Ali is talking about Ali is ibadah. So what we are doing is we are listening to Rasulullah sallallahu and engaging in ibadah. All these things, are there. And the fact that Imam Ali alayhi salam was put down so harshly for no grounds but simple hatred, And these are the questions that I want to raise in the next 9 sessions that we have here. Hopefully it will not be as long as this session, but I want to look at these people who were doing these Jummah Salat. The person who leads the Jummah Salat is an important person. He's not just any person. He's a respectable person, he's a learned person. And when he abuses any personality or talks down any personality, people will tend to believe or follow. If this is happening in many masjids, then this is going to become like an epidemic of hating that person. You understand what I'm trying to say? You see, in the entire city, in the entire province, in the entire country, people are talking bad about Imam Ali alayhi salam on Friday. and how his name has survived, it is a real testament to the Shia of Imam Ali alayhi salam, who have worked hard with their life, their property, with their whatever they had to save the name and to bring that name up higher and higher. Of course, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without Allah's help, nothing happens. So then what happens? I mean, I would like to inquire from history why it was so unjust to these stalwarts of Islam. Why didn't they give the due respect? What was going on? What was the reason behind it? I know this is being recorded, right? So I want this to be recorded, and I want people to see inquiries are simple questions that anybody could ask of anybody. Why this happened? And it is already happening, but I want to push, give a little bit more reinforcement to these questions to people who are actually looking for answers. And I want to see that I want to ask why these killings and operations were carried on from one generation to the other of the Imam Har Islam, right up to the 11th one. Why this kept happening? And all these things were going on under the garb of Islam. The people pushing Islam. At this juncture in the world right now, Islam has got a name that it is quite a stern religion. It is quite harsh. It is into killings. It is into conquests and all that. Muslims want to conquer. Muslims might want to conquer. People like to conquer. They want to control a lot of things. And they do. Whatever way you might consider, but they do try to conquer and control things. But Islam doesn't want. Islam talks about peace and no pressure on following a religion. Follow it the way you would like to, with your understanding. We have to talk and propone the religion of Rasulullah and Ali Muhammad sallallahu alaihi Muhammad. So we don't talk about the Islam that was pushed forward by the rulers who wanted to conquer one territory after the other and crush the people who were living there already because they followed a different religion. We were not going to propose that religion. We would propose the religion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his holy progeny, Ali Muhammad, through their character, through their behavior, how they behaved. And we need to talk about that. And we need to talk about the religion in which Rasulullah's grandson actually gives water to the whole army of the enemy. We don't want to talk about the religion in which a 6-month-old baby in the arms of the grandson of Rasulullah is shot an arrow. We don't want to talk about that religion, because that is the religion of Yazid. And it is all open there. Who is following what kind of religion now? And what is happening is the media is picking up all the aspects of people who want to follow the harsh form of the religion and calling it the religion of Ali Muhammad, which it's not. Imam Hussaini Islamic, when he was going from Makkah to Kufa, that was his plan, right? When he left Makkah, when he left Medina and went to Makkah, and stayed in Makkah for 4 months, and then from Makkah he was going to Kufa because he had received letters from people to come to Kufa, and then he was stopped on the way by an army coming in, and he had stopped by at an oasis. Also, you know what an oasis is? With a little water body in the desert. Because in the desert you find very little water. Wherever you have water, you build a camp there, so that you can stay there, you can drink water, you can feed the animals and all, carry water for you in other part of the journey as well. So Imam Hussain was stopped at a place where he was camped at, and then one of his people saw that there was lots of tree-like things he could see. He said, we are near another village, it seems, he said to Imam Hussain al-Islam. And then the Imam looked at it and said, no, this is not another village coming by. It is actually an army of soldiers whose spears seem like the stems and the branches of trees. It's not a village, it's trees, it's an army coming towards us. And when the army came, it was Hur, who was a general in the army of Yazid. Hur ibn Yazid al-Ri'ahi was a general in the army of Yazid. He came down with his whole army, and when he came down, it was an army of about 2,000 people, a battalion of 2,000 soldiers. And they were already thirsty because on the way to coming to Imam Hussain al-Islam, their whole agenda was to stop Imam Hussain from going to Kufa and to divert him somewhere else. So when they came around, Imam saw that all these 2,000 people and their horses and camels were very, very thirsty. They had no water. So he said to his younger brother, Hazrat Abbas, that, you know what, give them water. Give them as much water as they need, without any questions asked. Don't ask them why you're here, what you're doing here, what do you want. No, no, no. First, give them water unconditionally. Then we talk. And then water was given to the enemy, to all the soldiers and the horses and the camels of the soldiers. One soldier narrates that he was so thirsty that he was shaking because, he was very weak and he could not even hold the water flask. They don't have flasks, they had like water carriers in leather bags at that time. And he was trying to open the water bag, and then the water fell off. The bag fell off his hand because he was so weak, and all the water splashed down. And the soldier, one of Imam's members, caravan members, they gave another water bag to him. And again, he could not open it and put it to his mouth. He was so weak and shaking. And the entire water bag, the second one also fell down. So Imam Hussain saw this. And then he took the water bag himself and fed him the water with his own hands. And after a few minutes, he was, because once you don't just get your strength straight away, you have to wait. You feel better, cool down, and all the back, because your organs in the body are now not dehydrated, but now they are hydrated. They have water in them, so you feel strength coming back in. And then he asked one of the people, who is this gentleman who's sitting there? Because Imam was sitting on whatever it was, a stool or a chair, like thing. And he said, who is this gentleman who's sitting there? And the member of Imam's caravan replied, you don't know him? He's Hussain ibn Ali. He's our Imam. And the soldier of Hurs battalion realized that he is Hussain ibn Ali. He is the one who gave me water. And this is how it is. That on the 1st of Muharram, Imam Hussain alayhi salam feeds water to an entire battalion of the enemy who are thirsty. On the 10th of Muharram, he's standing with a 10-month-old or 6-month-old baby in his arms, and the baby is shot an arrow through his neck. This is what happened. But all this happened, Hur, the leader of that battalion, this had an effect on Hur because he felt that there was something wrong. And there was an exchange with Hur and Imam Hussain alayhi salam, which I'm not going to talk about. But what happened on the 10th of Muharram was that Hur left his own post as the general of the army, and he came to the camp of Imam Hussain alayhi salam in the morning of the 10th of Muharram. And he came with his hands tied at the back and his head down. And as soon as he neared Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he fell down with his head on Imam's feet. And he said, Halli Tawbah, can I be forgiven? Can I repent? And Imam alayhi salam picked him up and, hugged him, embraced him. And that was a sign of your repentance is granted, you are forgiven. And then Hur asked for permission to fight on Imam's behalf. He also got his son, who was now with his father, Hur's son, to fight in Imam's camp. And when the time for war came and the battle was happening, he asked permission, Hur asked permission from Imam Hussain alayhi salam to send Hur's son, his own son first, to fight against the army which he was a general of till the previous night. And his son went. And Imam said, are you sure that you want your son to go ahead? Yes, I want to see what is the pain of losing your own son. Because I also did give this pain to the son of Zahra when I got him here, where I got him now. And Hur's son goes and he fights like the brave son of a brave father. And he falls down when he is attacked from various sides by the army. And when he falls down, he does not call Imam Hussain. He calls his own father, said, for help. And he calls his own father for help. And his father, that is Hur, he rushes to the aid of his son. And when he reaches there, he sees that Imam Hussain is already there. And he's saying, Ya Mawla, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Don't worry, I'll take care of him. And Imam Hussaini Islam says, no, Hur, let me take care of him. Hur's son's head is in Imam Hussein's lap. And he's taken out a handkerchief which was given by his mother, Bibi Zahra, Salamullah alayha, and he's wiping the blood off his face. Hur is tying his, what do you call the waistband tightly so that he can carry his son to another place from the battlefield. And Imam sees and says, Hur, what are you doing? He said, nothing, Ya Mawla, I'm just preparing to carry this body to the camp, to your side of the camp. And Imam says, what are you talking about? How does an elderly father carry the body of his young grown-up son? It doesn't happen. I'll carry the dead body of your son. And you say, Imam, on the time of Asr, when everybody was dead, you were carrying the body of Ali al-Akbar, and you were carrying Ali Asghar in your arms when he was shot through by the same enemy who showed no remorse and no pity. May Allah accept all your presence in this little gathering that we have, my sisters on the other side, whoever they are, and you young people and my brothers over here. May Allah accept this ibadah from you all and give us more tawfiq to speak in a clearer manner so that we can pass the message on, leading on from now, inshallah ta'ala. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى الطاهرين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Any questions? No? You were listening very intently, which is very happy about. MashaAllah. No questions? Did you like what you heard? Yeah. So we lead from now on. Sister, do you have any questions? I'm here. I'm here, Hussain. I'm going to be here sitting. I've been asked by Mir Haider. I want to stay back. If somebody wants to engage with me, talk to me for whatever topics, ideas, or problems, anything, I should sit here and talk. And if you want to talk, discuss what's happening in school these days. Is the recording still going on? Yeah, Allah. I've been talking and talking. Just finished it.
Yeah, sure.
And you can send me a
Yeah, I can get a